Save big during Labor Day at Lowe's. Get up to 40% off select major appliances. Plus, buy more to get up to an additional 20% off. Shop even more savings with 3 Stay Green 1 cubic foot vegetable and flower garden soil bags for $10. This Labor Day, take care of your home for less at Lowe's. We help, you save. Valid through 9/3. Soil offer excludes Alaska and Hawaii. Selection varies by location. Select locations only. While supplies last. See Lowe's.com for more details.
So I wanted, before we get started, to let everyone know that I have a new podcast out, and it's called Meditations. If you like the Meditations segment of this current podcast, you'll like the Meditations podcast. It's nothing but 20 minutes of meditative sounds. And now, on with the podcast.
Americans love scenery. We want to see it all, from one coast to the next, Mount Rushmore down to the Everglades. So hop into a Chevy Malibu and take the scenic route. It's the car you knew America could build. There's a place where people count on friendships they can trace back generations, where they can count on the same stool at the coffee shop waiting for them every morning. This place is called Glen Ellen, and you can find it in every bottle of Glen Ellen wine. This is craft brewed Herman Joseph's, the smoothest, easiest drinking specialty beer in the entire solar system. And I believe you'll find drinkable in the dictionary right after don't order a beer you can't drink. Zoingo! Boingo! The freestyle pogo with more boing, more bounce. Bounce further, bounce higher with Zoingo Boingo. To see what makes Arrowhead Mountain Spring water different from those other waters, you have to go back to the source. And with Arrowhead, that means going back a little farther and longer than most. Between security challenged and security strengthened, there's one important word: how. And it is the how that makes all the difference to our nation and our world. Lockheed Martin. We never forget who we're working for. What makes Kraft Singles so good? 2 out of every 3 kids don't get the recommended amount of calcium. But with Kraft Singles, they get a good source of calcium and the taste they love. Kraft Singles. Magic every single time. Throw boring overboard with a new real meal from Long John Silver's. A meal worthy of a plate, just $4.99. Only at Long John Silver's. We may not all be geniuses, but we can all do something smart. Introducing the Hyundai 199 Sonata Lease. It's a smart deal on a really smart car.
Yeah, last week I saw my doctor. I told him, Doc, every day I wake up, I look in the mirror, I want to throw up. What's wrong with me? He said, I don't know, but your eyesight is perfect. Well, last week I went to the track, too. That was a beauty. When they shot off the opening gun, they killed my horse. I'll tell you, things happen to me you wouldn't believe. I mean, it's a weird feeling, me standing in a men's room. You see your home phone number on the wall. I don't know. I tell you what, me, nothing comes easy, you know. Show business, I worked every tough joint there is. Places like Fonzo's Knuckle Room, Aldo's, formerly Vito's, formerly Nunzio's. That was a tough one, Nunzio's. Every night the boss would say the same thing to me. Be funny. My people come in here, forget their troubles. I mean, how do you make a guy forget he's up for manslaughter? It's rough, you know? Oh, Nunzio's place was tough. Oh, I sat down to eat in a menu that had broken leg of lamb. And Nunzio, he was tough. One night he said to me, kid, you want to go hunting? I said, okay, I'm game, and he shot me.
Good morning. It's Wednesday, Apollo Wednesday, August the 27th, and this is The True Conservative. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. So today, after the Serenity Prayer and the patriotic song of the day, we will have Varney and Company, motivation, meditation, and Apollo. All that and more when I get back. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I should not change, the courage to change the things I should, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Thank you. Now, Varney and Company.
Gentlemen, great to be with you both. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you again tomorrow. Varney and Company picks it up. Stu, take it away.
Good morning, Maria. Good morning, everyone. I'm calling it the Trump Show. The marathon cabinet meeting that went on for over 3 hours and covered just about every issue on the political table. He made a lot of news. He's ready to name a new Fed governor who will help him lower interest rates. That's what he wants. He wants the death penalty for murderers in D.C. It was like The Apprentice. Every cabinet member was asked how their department was doing. At any moment, he could have said, "You're fired." There's 3.5 more years of this very transparent presidency still to go. Can you handle it? Today, you could call it the NVIDIA show. 7 hours from now, the world's most valuable company reports how it's doing at the summit of the artificial intelligence business. Investors seem confident. The stock is within a couple of dollars of its $184 a share high. The thing to watch is the call. That's when the CEO outlines the future. If there's any disappointment, look out below. Steady as she goes for the financial markets this morning ahead of the NVIDIA news. The Dow off maybe 8, S&P down 1, NASDAQ down 7, just like yesterday. Not much price movement. Everybody waiting for NVIDIA. Treasury yields, they're pretty steady. The 10-year holding above 4.25%. You're at 4.29 this morning. The 2-year, though, that is down to 3.66% yield. Bitcoin still at 110,000, moved up to 111.3. On the show today, Cracker Barrel retreats. They've abandoned the new woke logo and gone back to the old. They say they're listening to their customers. The president approves. He posted, "Make lots of money, and most importantly, make your customers happy again." We're going to address important economic issues. Should the government take stakes in private companies like defense contractors? Should the president tell the Federal Reserve what to do? And why are we killing the wind industry? We have answers, too. We will not ignore the Instagram record-breaking Travis Kelce-Taylor Swift engagement. It seems traditional. They want to get married and have children. We cover it all on this Wednesday, August the 27th, 2025.
And that's Varney and Company, nonprofit news now. Thank you. On Maria Bartiromo, they're talking about the Trump administration has halted the construction of an offshore wind so-called farm. And they sent a letter to the country or to the company that is making those windmills and telling them basically to knock it off. So, and then they're going on to talk about how it's national security concern and blah, 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 whatever. What they're missing here is an underlying issue, which is that Republicans and ersatz conservatives are more dangerous to this country than are the liberals. And the reason is greed. The liberals will come out and say, the dynamic works this way. The liberals come out and say, "Hey, I got a great idea. Why don't we power everything by solar and wind?" And then everybody laughs, ha, 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 until the Democrats go ahead and put out requests for proposal, which means they're looking to give contracts to companies that are going to build the solar farms and to build the wind farms. And that's when every Republican in the country, every ersatz conservative in the country rushes to the federal government to put in their request for proposal, to put in their bids for the contract because of greed. And they don't understand, and a lot of people in this country don't understand, there's nothing Republican about greed, and there's nothing conservative about greed. And as long as there are greedy Republicans that are willing to sell their grandmother to make a buck, this country is going to continue to be in a situation where the vast majority of people are normal and rational and reasonable, but we watch the news and see the country becoming increasingly bizarre. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, Dr. Berg.
Now, if you want to get more energy, You want to focus in on this amazing cell in your body called the mitochondria. The mitochondria is a pre-battery machine. It actually makes a lot of batteries, and that battery is ATP. Did you realize that your body actually makes your weight in ATP every single day? ATP is the energy currency of the body, and ATP is not stored. It's made on demand. Unless you understand it and support it with all the cofactors like B vitamins, magnesium, zinc, coenzyme Q10, as well as certain foods that will help build the mitochondria, you may find that you're never able to get your energy past a certain point. Now, if you really want to take your energy to the next level, search out my video on YouTube that I just released on fatigue. And in that video, I'm going to show you exactly what to do.
And that was Dr. Berg. Back in a minute. Thank you, and now motivation.
If the lion is the king of the jungle, how can he be the king of the jungle? If he's not the biggest, the elephant is probably one of the biggest. He can't be the fastest because that's a cheetah. He can't be the smartest. So he's not the biggest, the fastest, or the smartest. So how does a lion become the king of the jungle? His mentality. That's the only difference of a lion and an elephant. When a lion walks up and sees an elephant, he thinks lunch. An elephant thinks run. And it's all mentality. Because when a male lion walks up, he may be outnumbered by a pack of hyenas, but I'm king of my jungle because of my mentality.
What happens when you're a gazelle and you're not being pushed, you're not being prodded, you're not given a reward, nobody's encouraging you? What happens when you're a gazelle and the lion's not chasing anymore? You stop running. What happens when you're a lion? When you're a lion, it does not make a difference. You realize that if your family is going to eat, that if that pack of lions is to survive, then you gotta go hunt. A part of being a beast just ain't eating a gazelle. A part of being a beast is the hunt. It's the hunt that they're excited about. They like to see the gazelles run. Then boom, they take off. Because real lions like to hunt. They love the process just as much as they love the prize. And some of y'all just want to score. You don't like the process. You're not in love with the process. A true hunter's goal is not the prize. A true hunter's goal is to hunt. That's what they live for. They live to hunt. They don't just live to catch it. It's the whole process. When you are a true hunter, you don't go by time. You go by the gazelle. When you are a true hunter, you hunt until you get a gazelle, and you don't stop until you get one. And then you get another, and then you get another, and you get another. If you're going to do what you say you're going to do, be what you say you're going to be, you're going to have to lion me out. You a gazelle, you're going to come up short. You a gazelle, you're going to have an average experience. You a student, I need you in lion mode. You an entrepreneur, I need you in lion mode. You trying to lose weight, lion mode. You can't do nothing significant in gazelle mode. Nothing. Nothing impressive happens in gazelle mode. Nothing happens in run mode, give up mode, quit mode, scared mode, fearful mode. Nothing happens. Everything happens in lion mode like I'm coming to get you.
And that was a little bit of motivation. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, meditation.
Welcome to this 5-minute guided meditation for deep sleep. This short journey will help you release stress, calm your mind, and gently guide you into restful, deep sleep. Find a comfortable position as you lie down. Close your eyes. Take a slow, deep breath in and slowly exhale. With each breath, allow tension to melt away. Inhale peace. Exhale worries. Inhale calm. Exhale stress. Now, bring your awareness to the top of your head. Imagine a wave of relaxation gently moving down, softening your forehead, your eyes, your jaw. Your shoulders release all heaviness. Your arms and hands feel heavy, calm, and at rest. With every breath, your chest and heart relax. Your stomach softens. Your legs, your feet, sinking deeper into the bed. Your whole body is now completely relaxed. Imagine yourself under a peaceful night sky filled with stars. A gentle breeze soothes you. You feel safe, calm, and deeply at rest. Each star above shines with comfort, guiding you into deeper sleep. As you surrender to this calm, allow yourself to drift into deep, healing sleep. Release all thoughts. Your body is heavy. Your mind is quiet. Your heart is at peace. Sleep is here for you now. Thank you for being here.
And that was a little bit of meditation. Back in a minute.
It is Tuesday, August 26th. It is Judge Janine. Here I am in the District of Columbia. And last night, 86 arrests on the surge. 4 guns were seized, bringing us up to 1,094 arrests since the surge started, and 115 guns that have been taken off the street and not capable of being used in further crimes. And, by the way, an additional pearl here, not a single carjacking in over a week. So we continue to fight the fight to make sure that people in D.C. are safe. And I got to tell you something. I was watching the news this morning, and someone was complaining that Americans really are not concerned about carjacking. You know, I think that they need to reconnect with the Americans who are living in D.C. and all around the country who don't want to be carjacked, and forget the nonsense of making believe that this isn't a real problem. It is a real problem. And
that was Judge Janine. Back in a minute. Thank you, and now a little Law and Order. Excuse the sound of the air conditioner in the background.
32 of the Family Court Act permits you to order a child to submit to DNA testing for for a paternity action, as opposed to this, which is a non-paternity action. Donald FF versus Jennifer FF. The Family Court Act does not authorize a proceeding which aims to illegitimize a child.
This isn't about parental responsibilities. We want this resolved so that we can wrap up Mr. McGuy's murder case and, if necessary, begin the search for his son.
Please, he's a confessed murderer. In the country illegally, demanding a DNA test on a child he claims isn't his. Where's his standing?
If Mr. McGuy's claim is true, we have evidence of a crime. If Mr. McGuy is this baby's father, that's the end of all this. No further disruptions in the child's life.
The test seems minimally invasive and would resolve the cloud hanging over this child's head. Mr. Farmer, your client will produce the boy for a DNA test.
Okay, so the judge made the wrong ruling here. This is a classic balancing test where the judge is being asked to decide whose rights are more important. Is it the rights of the district attorney or the rights of the woman that is who adopted the child? And the fact of the matter is, it's the woman who adopted the child, because she's the only one of the two that actually has any rights. So he made a mistake. He should have told the district attorney or assistant district attorney that he has no rights. He doesn't have it, because he doesn't. He doesn't have the right to make a case. I don't care if it's a murder or a mass murder or whatever. He has no right to make the case. The woman, on the other hand, has the right to privacy, for one thing, and she has the right to go ahead and raise her child unmolested by the state, because that's what the state's asking for, is a DNA sample. So, again, the judge made an error. He didn't realize that he's being asked to do a balancing test between rights, the district attorney's rights and the rights of the respondent, and the district attorney, in fact, has no rights. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now the preamble to the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Back in a minute. Thank you. So about what happened in Minnesota, where a criminal decided to go on a murderous rampage, and now all of the idiots that call themselves conservative, that are a bigger threat to our liberties than the left ever was, are mischaracterizing this as a shooting. They keep talking about it as a shooting and a shooter, and how many people that got shot. And then they complain that there are people on the left that are asking for gun control. No shit. If the problem is shooting, what do you think the solution is going to be? It's going to be gun control. We can't win the shooting argument. This is why words are important. We cannot win the argument on shooting. However, we can win the argument on crime. What this person did was criminal. They attempted to murder, and perhaps murdered, I don't know the full details, people in that church. That's what they did. Okay, how they decided to do that is irrelevant. Makes no difference. We can win the arguments on crime and crime control all day, every day and twice on Sunday. So again, it is the people on the right that are helping the left move towards gun control. If the idiots that call themselves conservatives would simply refuse to refer to these things as shootings and start to referring to them as what they are, crimes, we could start moving back the other direction. And this is why I am the only true conservative in the United States today. Back in a minute.
Thank you. And now from a book that's called Good Inside. What's the opposite of understanding? For this argument's sake, it's convincing. Convincing is the attempt to prove a singular reality, to prove that only one thing is true. Convincing is an attempt to be right, and as a result make the other person wrong. It rests on the assumption that there's only one correct viewpoint. And then my question is this supposed to be convincing? Further, convincing has one goal in mind, being right. And here's the unfortunate consequence of being right. The other person feels unseen and unheard, at which point most people become infuriated and combative, because it feels as if the other person does not accept your realness or worth. Feeling unseen and unheard makes connection impossible. Understanding two things are true and convincing one thing is true are diametrically opposed ways of approaching other people, so a powerful first step in any interaction is to notice which mode you're in. When you're in one thing is true mode, you're judgmental of and reactive to someone else's experience because it feels like an assault on your own truth. As a result, you will seek to prove your own point of view, which in turn makes the other person defensive because they need to uphold the realness of their experience. In one thing is true mode, exchanges escalate quickly. Each person thinks they're arguing about the content of the conversation when in fact they're trying to defend that they are a real, worthy person with a real, truthful experience. And again, is this convincing? Back in a minute.
Thank you. Now, Jordan Peterson.
By the argument I just made on the natural front, you say, yeah, that's just nature. That's not God. And then I'd say, well, what makes you think you know what nature is? See, the problem with that argument is that it already presumes a reductionist, materialist, objective view of what constitutes nature. But if you're a scientist, you're going to think, well, in the final analysis, I don't know what nature is. I certainly don't know its origin or destination point. I don't know its teleology. I'm really ignorant about nature. And so when I say it's nothing but nature, I shouldn't mean it's nothing but what I understand nature to be. So I could say, will we have a fully reductionist account of cognitive processes? And the answer to that is yes, but by the time we do that, our understanding of matter will have transformed so much that what we think of as reductionist now won't look anything like what we think of reductionism. By the argument I just made on the...
And that was Jordan Peterson. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, what does the phrase, if you're explaining you're losing, mean in debates? This was said by Ronald Reagan, speaking of political campaigns. From the perspective of your audience, if you have to explain yourself, you come off looking desperate to convince. As a consequence, you lose the high ground. From a more philosophical perspective, when you have a clear conscience and strong conviction towards the positions you take, your values, truth, and direction, you don't need the opinions or consent of others. As a consequence, you don't need to explain yourself. However, if you yourself are not convinced of the validity and truth of your position, or you can't fully justify your choices, then you continue to expel words in an attempt to create the illusion of certainty. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, Jeffrey Mead.
We've also been going through it and can tell you there are crude diagrams of the church. There are also photos of the weapons, and they include all sorts of writings, the names of past mass shooters, criticism of Israel, the name of President Trump written on the guns. There are also racial slurs, nihilistic statements, all painting the picture of a disturbed individual who carried out this mass shooting.
We don't dislike many of these outlets enough. See, he didn't lie. Donald Trump's name was mentioned on the weapons, but they just don't tell you what was actually said. This is what was said. You can read it. This is also what was said on the optic.
It reads, kill Donald Trump.
But let's go back. How was ABC reporting this?
The name of President Trump written on the guns. There are also...
Unbelievable. Now, why wouldn't they want to report what was actually written on the guns? Because if they actually tell you what was said, then we might have to ask, well, how did this person get to the point where they thought they needed to do that to the president? Who's saying what, and what media is covering it, and how are they covering things to get people to believe these things and think them? Then Democrats in the media on the left might have to look in the mirror and say, hey, the rhetoric that we've been pushing and spouting is dangerous. We've been saying things that are out of control, and we've been manipulating people emotionally to the point where they feel like they need to take action against someone's life. They don't want to have that conversation. They want to continue to push lies. They want to continue to manipulate people in the direction they want people to go, and they don't want to have the consequences for it. Like, it's so blatant, like they can't even report what was said. For example, they mention criticisms of Israel. You know what else this person wrote?
6 million wasn't enough.
We do not hate most of the mainstream media enough. We need to keep calling them out and keep destroying their credibility until they start to report things honestly. If you're tired of the mainstream media lying to you, I have a free email newsletter where I cover what's breaking, what's happening, and I go into more detail on many of these topics. And this is one of the only places I cannot be censored. The link is in my profile. So just go to my profile, click the link. You'll see the screen right here. Drop your email in, hit subscribe, and you'll be good to go. That's all I got for now. We'll see you in the next one.
Okay, so his link or whatever, it's called on Instagram, _Jeffrey Mead, MEAD, for those of you that want to subscribe to his newsletter. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, here's Geert Wilders, a Dutch conservative.
We geven dit jaar 9 miljard euro uit aan de opvang van asielzoekers en Oekraïners. Bij elkaar 9 miljard euro. Wat hadden we daarvoor kunnen doen? Wat hadden we daar voor Nederland kunnen doen? Voor de boodschappen, voor extra agenten? Weet ik wat we allemaal hadden kunnen doen? En dat is waar mijn partij voor staat. En die kiezer weet bij wie die moet zijn. En dat is niet bij u.
And that was Geert Wilders. He's the conservative candidate in the Netherlands. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, Apollo.
2. Kraft was the first flight director in manned spaceflight, and the only one until the last flight in Project Mercury, Gordon Cooper's. Cooper was scheduled to be in orbit for 34 hours, which was longer than even Kraft could handle on his own. So he appointed his deputy, Englishman John Hodge, part of the Avro Group, to be the second flight director. They adopted colors to identify themselves. Kraft was red flight, so the men working his shifts would be the red team, and Hodge was blue flight. When Gemini began in 1965, Kraft added 3 more flight directors. The first 2 were Gene Kranz, white flight, who had been acting as Kraft's assistant flight director during Mercury, and Glyn Lunny, black flight, the youngest of the original members of the Space Task Group. After Gemini 7 in December 1965, Kraft stepped down as a flight director to leave more time for his responsibilities as head of the Flight Operations Directorate. Cliff Charlesworth became the next flight director, choosing green as his color. In early 1968, John Hodge left to work on post-Apollo programs, and 3 more flight directors were added. Jerry Griffin, gold, Milt Windler, maroon, and Pete Frank, orange. There were other additions and subtractions before Apollo ended, but just as Kraft provided the master model of the flight director, Charlesworth, Lunny, and Krantz defined the basic subtypes. Of the three, Charlesworth seemed the closest to normal. A Mississippian, Charlesworth was a little older than the others. He had reached the advanced age of 35 when he was promoted, and in many ways acted older as well, with a lazy voice and a deliberate manner. Charlesworth didn't give much away, watching and reacting rather than trying to get out front and pull people along. Cliff is a very wise man, in a student of human behavior kind of way, one of his colleagues observed. He could have been a pool shark or a Mississippi riverboat card player. As a flight director, Charlesworth was what another colleague called the laissez-faire flight director, leaving his controllers alone until a problem arose that required him to act. In contrast, Glyn Lunny's problem, if it was a problem, was making himself hang back long enough to let his controllers figure things out for themselves. By common agreement among controllers and the other flight directors, Glyn Lunny had the quickest mind in a business where quickness was a supreme virtue. Lunny was always so quick that many times the controllers would get behind Glyn, said another flight director. Any time we'd get into a simulation, whether it be in the systems area or trajectory or whatever, Glyn would start pulsing the controller with questions and leading him into paths to look at. Since a main point of the simulation was to see whether the controller would figure it out for himself, this got in the way of the training. But it was hard for Lunny to rein himself in. Lunny could whip everybody up into following more lines of corrective action than you really want to get into at any given time, said one Fido. There are always several solutions to a given problem, and when Glyn was on, the controllers would all be furiously attacking every solution at the same time. Lunny, only 28 years old when he became a flight director, had a sunny personality and an open exuberance about his work that made him a favorite among the controllers. If sometimes Lunny got ahead of them, they didn't get upset. People who worked with him over a period of time became aware that he was just doing what's normal for him, a colleague said. He couldn't help it if it's not normal for everybody else. The third member of the triumvirate, Gene Kranz, was similar to Lunny only in his open relish of the job. Lunny looked as if he belonged in a Campbell's soup ad, whereas Gene Kranz looked like a drill sergeant in some especially scary branch of the armed forces, hair cropped to a regulation military brush with a wedge of a face cut into rough planes. Kranz was as relentless as he looked. If nothing was going on, he would invent something, said one of his controllers. If there's 5 minutes of spare time, then he'll think up something else, another contingency. There was almost a constant chatter on the flight director's loop, talking to somebody about something. During Gemini, Kranz acquired the nickname General Savage after the hard-driving hero of a contemporary television series, earlier a movie, 12 O'Clock High. When an anonymous controller made a stencil of the name and hung it outside his office door, Kranz left it there as long as he was in the office. He loved it. In the movie 12 O'Clock High, the unrelenting General Savage replaces a sensitive commander who was loved by his pilots, even though under his leadership they couldn't hit their targets and got shot down in large numbers. General Savage, hated at first, turns the squadron around and is finally recognized to be a terrific guy underneath his tough exterior. Kranz had in fact flown F-86s and F-100s for the Air Force during the mid-1950s. Yet despite the hard, unyielding aspect of his reputation, Kranz wore his heart on his sleeve more than any of the other flight directors. A devout Catholic, Kranz didn't hesitate to pray for help before going on shift. An unabashed patriot, he played tape recordings of the Star-Spangled Banner and Sousa marches every morning in his office. They got him pumped up, ready to give his all, which was the only throttle setting on Gene Kranz's personality. More than the other flight directors, Kranz had a fierce loyalty to his team, the White Team, even though its members changed from flight to flight. Early in his career as flight director, he began wearing a different white vest for each flight, sometimes new vests for important shifts within a flight. After a while, this put a strain on his wife as she combed the Houston fabric stores trying to find a white brocade or silk or twill or something that she hadn't already used to make one of Gene's vests. But it was all part of Kranz's abiding attachments to God, country, family, his band of brothers in the Flight Operations Directorate, and the Mocher itself. In an odd sort of way, Kranz was also a Democrat. Gene assumes that everybody knows as much as he does, said one controller. He doesn't think that anybody's dumber than he is. He doesn't think anybody is not as involved in his job as he is. That's the way he looks at people. So he assumed you were doing everything he was doing. But asking of others only what he demanded of himself could, in his case, be scary. Kranz's credo, what Kranz labeled premise number 1, was stark. Any error that a flight director or a team makes is unforgivable. It was an intimate business, this directing of space flights, or as Kranz liked to say, you gotta be knowledgeable of the human. When John Glenn was waiting to launch in 1962, Walt Williams told Al Shepard, the Capcom, to chat Glenn up a little. Williams wanted to listen to Glenn's voice, calibrate his state of mind, as later flight directors would listen to the voices of astronauts and flight controllers alike. Each crew member or controller was a little different in personality, in the systems he knew best, in the way he put things, and the flight director had to take that into account. In some cases, you might know you were getting a little out on the fringe of what the guy really might be able to pull together and give good recommendations. So you took a little more time with it, Lunny recalled, to be sure that the facts were there and the guy had thought it through. There were other guys who were just like this. Lunny snapped his fingers, and I'd pass it through almost as they said it. It was a calibration process that everybody engaged in. The controllers did the same thing with flight directors. I think the biggest role of the flight director was asking the right questions, which is an art more than a science, said Jerry Griffin. It's anticipating what questions need to be answered. The objective was to stay as far ahead of the spacecraft as possible, to have already thought about a problem before the problem demanded an action. And then, having asked the right questions, flight had to listen carefully to every word and nuance of the answers. The most likely error we can make in the business is not listening, said Kranz. We've got very smart people in the controllers. We breed them to be very smart. We breed them to give opinions. We breed them to work in an arena of conflict. Sometimes they may disagree with you. Sometimes they may not be too smooth in words. Sometimes they may come in on an untimely basis and disrupt your train of thought. But none of that can interfere with your listening and understanding precisely what it is that you are hearing. If you can't listen to each person and understand exactly what that person is saying, said Kranz, we're going to screw up. As you get down to having to work a problem in 20 seconds, you've got to have that relationship with the people. To coordinate the work of the entire MOCR, a flight director had to keep in his memory a prodigious amount of material. By the time of the Apollo flights, for example, the mission rules books ran to hundreds of pages. Neither Kranz nor Lunny nor Charlesworth can remember ever having to refer to those pages during the course of a flight. This does not mean that the flight directors had literally memorized them. The memories of the best flight directors were extraordinary, however. Years later, Kranz insisted to a visitor that he had a poor memory. Lunny had an amazing memory, he said, but not he. This was said a few minutes after Kranz had referred with total recall to a minor point that the visitor had raised in a conversation 8 months earlier. Actually, different flight directors had different attitudes toward the written-down rules. Tech Roberts, the first Fido and a mentor of both Kranz and Lunny, put it this way. Glynn is a freewheeling kind of individual. Rules, he'll say, what rules? If they make sense or suit what he's doing at that moment, they're tolerable. If they don't, they're obviously meant to be ignored. For Gene, everything is by the book. Of course, Roberts reflected, when it comes to Kranz, you have to remember that he wrote the book. But at least the books were always there if they had to be used. The more critical demand on the flight director's memory had to do with short-term memory. All of the complexities and ambiguities of the controller's understanding of what was happening were being funneled into the flight director's ear. All sorts of different considerations apply, said Lunny. You have a problem with the life support systems, and you have a problem with the landing weather. So when are you going to come down? And don't forget you had this problem with a jet earlier. All these things had to be cranked into the decision. The flight director's role is to integrate all that stuff and make it come out right and then order it so that what goes up and down to the crews is also ordered. And always under the pressure of time. You've got a limited window. You've got to get it all done. You've got to really think through doing things in a priority order. They might not even be the most important, but they're the things you have to get done now. And once Flight had remembered, calculated, ordered his priorities, and made the decisions, he had to communicate them. It's very important to be able to communicate what you want to get done in as few words as you can, Cliff Charlesworth observed. I used to spend time on my own thinking about how to do that. How can I say what I want to say so that this guy will understand in the fewest words? Because you didn't always have a lot of time to sit there and laboriously go through it. Thinking about what to say slows you down, Charlesworth continued. I used to sit beside the flight director's console when, say, Glenn was on the console. And even as quick-witted as he is, I'd get ahead of him sometimes when the problems started coming in. I'd scratch my head and say, "Why is that?" It's because I wasn't having to talk, and he was. So it wasn't just the authority and the visibility that set the flight director apart, but the job itself. It was the flight controller's job writ large. Know in technical detail one of the most complex machines ever made. Master a complex flight plan and a huge body of mission rules. Piece together tiny and often unconnected bits of information from multiple sources coming to you at the same time. Do all this under the gaze of the world in situations that might give you only seconds to make life and death decisions. If it was not a job for just anybody, it was also a job that had no equal. Reminded of all the ways in which working in the Moker was tiring and even physically painful, Lunny once replied, "I can only say that I loved it. I thought it was wonderful. Remember the Patton movie? He's standing by the tank with a battlefield full of dead soldiers and he says something like, 'May God help me, but I love it.' And when he said that, I said to myself, I can relate to that."
And that was Apollo by Charles Murray and Catherine Bly Cox. Rocket Science Wednesday. Back in a minute. Thank you. This is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States today, bidding adios to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there, and reminding you that socialism is antisocial.
This Labor Day at Lowe's, shop member-only doorbuster deals for a limited time. Save $50 on an Ego string trimmer, now $169. Plus, get 50% off select Holland pavers. Not a rewards member? Sign up for free today. But hurry, Labor Day doorbuster deals won't last long. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid through 9/1 while supplies last. Program subject to terms and conditions. Details at Lowe's.com/terms. Subject to change.